Welcome, dear friends, to the Spirit Society of Virginia and Cardiac Radio in our inspirational talks. We are here every Friday to share the teachings of Spiritism. And today, July 3rd, 2020, we are starting a special month. It's not only Cardiac Radio's anniversary, but we are also being asked by the Spirit mentors to study more about tolerance, equality, and we have a series of talks that will be leading to a greater understanding about equality, from boosting our tolerance to dismantling social inequalities, uprooting systematic racism, women and men's equal rights, natural rights of all people. We are going to be working on topics that are on demand. So you're welcome to join us today, and to begin it, we will right now quote just a sentence or two to begin our session from the book Thought and Life by Emmanuel through Chico Xavier, chapter 25, which talks about tolerance. Tolerance, says Emmanuel, tolerance is the foundation of all true progress. Just as all parts of a machine work together so that there may be the production of certain benefits. All blessings of nature are a series of manifestations of this blessed virtue that inspires true brotherhood. Divine providence reflects wise and active providence everywhere. God does not require that the seed immediately produce after its kind. God gave it time to germinate and grow, to bloom and to bear fruit. God does not ask the stream to quickly blend its course towards the awaiting ocean. He offers the stream pathways through the soil and the time needed to finish its course. Likewise, tolerance is needed between one soul and another. It is important that we do not assume any attitude of violence. To tolerate is to reflect brotherly understanding, and forgiveness is always a preventive measure that assures health and peace, renewal, and security wherever it may be. So, saying these words, Emmanuel is inviting all of us to a shift in our vibration. We're not equal externally, but we are deeply, essentially alike. So to boost that new understanding in us, let us begin with a prayer. Let us begin with a prayer that shall help us elevate our thoughts and be inspired by those who already practice tolerance from A to Z. Let us feel right now the invitation of on high to acquire new instruction so we can open our hearts to greater understanding. Let us feel the call of love. Yes, love is firm and yet all-embracing, never sectarian. There's no pride or separation. It's all-encompassing. Dear Mother, Father God, We thank you for the invitation of this month, so we can meditate on the law of equality that you've created and work on ourselves feeling alike, humbling ourselves before the beautiful diversity of life created by you. May the experimenters of the Spirit Society of Virginia, Cardiac Radio, the Spirit Society of DC, inspire all of us and the children's lesson that is happening in another channel. So we all together feeling ourselves in our centers may open the doors of our minds, hearts, and houses to a life of equal rights, to a life of equal loving care for all. May we receive your inspiration and guidance as you lead us into the permission of entering this therapeutic session for our souls, and so be it. It feels good, doesn't it, friends? It feels good to think about equality, to feel about tolerance. And before we get there, our dear friend Luciana is going to bring to us the Spirit's Book moment.
Let me unmute myself before. Hello, friends. So, as we know, the Spirit's Book is very important for us. And we are coming here every Friday with a little inserts, like questions, little questions to make us think about it. So, this book that is so rich, we are studying questions 896. And the question today is going to make us think about it, how we spend our money, how will we spend everything that God is providing to us. So the question is, there are persons who are generous but without discernment and who lavish their money without doing any real good from the want of the reasonable plans of its employment. Is there any merit on their action? So some people has the money, has the resource to go and help people, but sometimes they do not think about it, how they can actually be helping someone, right? They just spend their money without a goal, without a greater good, right? So we always need to learn where we should put this money, like the charities, all the works that even our center is doing is a good place for you to put your money, and you know you're going to be doing something good. And here's what comes to the answer of the spirits. Such persons have the merit of disinterestedness, but they have not that of the good they might do. What does that mean? So they are not interested, they don't have the attached to their money, but they could be doing much more if they had a goal, if they had a plan to how to help and apply this money. With the in disinterestedness, be a virtue, thoughtless prodigalities is always to say that the least of it a want of judgment. So if it was a virtue, so that will be good because they were not connected to their money. But it's not, right? We need to have a goal. That's why we study. That's why we discipline ourselves. So fortune is no more given to some persons to be thrown away than to others to lock up in a safe. It is a deposit of which they will have to render an account, for there will have be answer for all the good they might have done, but fail to do. For all of the tears they might have dried with the money they have wasted on those who had no need of it. So everything that is provided to us, there is a reason. If we have a lot of money, if we have little money, everything that we have is for us to share with our brothers and sisters in greater need. So we need to be very mindful when we want to apply the money, because everything is being lended to us. It's not ours, right? It's God. So if we don't apply his goods, everything that is being provided to us in a good way, we will be called to pay the bill, right? Why you're spending this money with not doing any good? So we need to be meditating. Think about it. How are we using the resources that God is providing to us? Because if we have a lot and we are wasting in things that are not for the greater good, we'll be accountable. And if we want to be working with Jesus, working with God, we need to have a plan and knowing that this is all passing. There is the money, all that we have in our hands is for us to share with others. It's not for us to collect and keep for ourselves. So, with that, dear friends, let us work in this question this week to see how we can be better useful with the goods and the things that God is providing in our life. Thank you, friends.
Thank you, Luciana. And this is a beautiful message for us, talking about disinterestedness. It's about focusing on the general good always. Do we do this? Oh, we could do even a math here. But today we're focusing on how to embrace everyone. As Emmanuel says, this sense of tolerance, boosting our tolerance. What is tolerance? How can we do it? Carol Correa and Daisy Gallen are going to lead us into the breakdown of a beautiful message by Emmanuel through Chico Xavier that can certainly help us in that regard. Right, Daisy and Carol?
That's right, Vanessa.
Right, Vanessa.
That's right. So, friends, we are starting this beautiful month of July, and as we are going to be discussing each Friday the different aspects of equality, a topic that right now is so key in our society. We have been hearing from across our planet how this topic is coming up more and more. And Jesus have been teaching us for 2,000 years about this. So in this very first session tonight, we're going to be discussing about tolerance as the foundation for us. Tolerance is really the foundation, as we just read in the book Thought and Life by Emmanuel. Tolerance is the foundation of the true progress in our lives. So if we want to progress, we need to embrace tolerance in our lives. So tonight, Kara and I, we were going to be together studying with you this beautiful, beautiful message titled Spiritual Immunization. This message was psychographed by Chico Xavier through the Spirit Emmanuel, and it's in this book, Seifa de Luz, Harvest of Light. It's a really beautiful, beautiful book. The book itself is not yet translated it's not available in English, but the team at Kardec Radio has not only translated the message, but you can read this very own message at the Spiritus Magazine, issue number 33. And you can also listen to the whole series, Harvest of Light, that was hosted by our dear Vanessa Anceloni, and it's available on Kardec Radio's Facebook and YouTube channel. So you might be asking yourself, but Daisy, Carol, we're talking about tolerance. What does this has to do with spiritual immunization? Okay, so we're gonna be breaking this down together because in this message, Emmanuel talks to us and explains that tolerance is a virus. Yes, tolerance is a virus. We are right now in the middle of a pandemic. We're talking so much about the coronavirus, but there's a more important virus for us to be worried about. That's the virus of intolerance. Yes, dear friends. So, Emmanuel starts this message explaining to us that there are actually two classes of opponents or two classes of enemies that we might encounter in our lives. The very first class that Emmanuel describes to us, he says that are those who disagree with us. I'm sure we can all think about different places in our lives where we encounter those who disagree with us. So that is the very first class of opponents that we might encounter. And the second one, very interesting, as summarized by Emmanuel, are those who we have raised with our own culture of intolerance. So, do you see the difference, friends? How the first class, those who disagree with us. So, think about this as something external, right? Someone that has a different opinion, thinks different than us, disagree with us. And the second class, you can feel it has something from within to others. We raise those ourselves through our intolerance ourselves. And Emmanuel explains to us in this message that those enemies who disagree with us, those are inevitable. We all gonna have them. We all gonna encounter them. Oh, wow. Okay, good, Emmanuel. We know, right? We know. Great. We not that we don't want to find those enemies, but at least he's explaining to us that those are inevitable. We're gonna have them. He's not saying that we are not in our planet yet where we're gonna be able to all get along and be best friends with one another, right? He's saying, yes, we're gonna encounter those who have different opinion, who disagree with us, and that's inevitable. What is the greatest example, right, of this very first class of opponents or enemies? Jesus himself, right? He himself, the governor of our planet, our Master Jesus, reincarnated, and he himself encountered this. So if Jesus found those who disagree with him, that didn't think the same, who are we, right, friends? So this first class are inevitable. But the problem is this second class, those that we raise with our feelings, words, actions of intolerance. And Emmanuel then explains that this class we can and we should avoid. So he's saying we can avoid it. So we can do something to avoid this class because as we know with Master Jesus, those who disagree with us, we're going to encounter, doesn't matter what. But the problem, friends, is that if we are attracting ourselves those enemies because of our words, feelings, and actions of intolerance. So, before we continue breaking this down, let's then take a step back because if Emmanuel is talking to us about spiritual immunization, We need to understand, right? If we need to immunize ourselves, how does that work, right? So, as we are talking now in the middle of a pandemic, so much about vaccines being developed, about how our immune system is reacting to the virus. So, it's important for us to make that connections because then we can understand how this happened in our spiritual connection. We are all spirits. But before we go there, we know that our body, we have an immune system. Yes, it's a system that is inbuilt. We are already born with it. Yes, it improves throughout our lives. It becomes more and more efficient, better. But it's a protective system that is within our body, friends. So we have a system that once it detects something that's not right, right? An alarm goes out. And then this system then provides everything our body needs to react to that let's say that external influence that is not very nice, right? That's how our immune system works. But there are things that we can do to boost our immune system because, as we know, it's a system, right? So it's not perfect yet. It needs to continue, right? Like the computer, we need to continue upgrading it. It's the same thing with our immune system. We need to continue to improving it. So we have, thanks to science, vaccines, right? So what are vaccines, right? Are ways that we can tell our immune system here, this is something that you might encounter later on. So let us build those uh, protective systems so that we know how to react if this happens, right? So, if a scientist is trying to understand how we can best protect ourselves, what do they do? They first have to understand the virus that they are trying to protect ourselves, like right now the scientists that are out there, they're trying to understand how does the coronavirus comes, how does it enters our body, how it reacts, right? We need to understand this external agent so that we know how to protect ourselves. And it's the same thing for us when we're talking now, taking this knowledge that we have in the material plane to the spiritual plane, we can now understand. So if Emmanuel is telling us that intolerance is a virus, we need to study it. We need to know how we can combat it. So before we even talk about, right, about the vaccine against intolerance, we need, friends, to understand what is intolerance. How does it happen in our lives? Because we know it does happen. So in Spiritism, Emmanuel, through other books, including the own book, Thought and Life, also psychographed by Chico Xavier, he explains to us that our thoughts, our feelings, our words, our actions, they are electromagnetic forces. So that means anything that we feel, that we think, that we act upon, that we say, those things will attract things that are similar. So if we have beautiful thoughts, beautiful feelings of love and kindness, we gonna attract in our perispirit, in our field, spiritual field, those same things. So if we're thinking about protecting ourselves, really protecting ourselves, and Emmanuel says in the book Thought and Life that tolerance is a preventive measure for our health. So we all want to be healthy, right? We all want to be healthy physically, spiritually, emotionally. So if we want to be health, we need to know that if we put something out there, we also gonna attract. So how does intolerance happens throughout our lives, throughout our daily lives? And Emmanuel has a wonderful educator. He, in this message titled Spiritual Immunization, he brought to us a list. Yes, right here, friends, we have a list of spiritual vulnerabilities. How we make ourselves vulnerable for this virus of intolerance. So, let's understand this so that we then go to the second part of today's presentation, which is to understand how we can protect ourselves. But before, we need to see from this list what are the things that I concur throughout my day that are making myself truly vulnerable. And we would say this is the true disease, dear friends. We know anything doesn't materialize in the physical plane if there is not a spiritual component. So we do everything we can with our physical bodies, right? We take the vitamins, we protect ourselves, but we need to protect ourselves spiritually. That's the most important thing. So in this big list, Emmanuel talks about outbreaks of forceful vibrations, centers of systematic opposition, silent threats, closed doors to spontaneous contests, opinions that are almost always biased regarding us, unjustified suspicion, and he goes on and on and on. So we can spend our whole probably the next 24 hours going through each of those lists. But tonight, Karen and I want to bring to you some highlights of a few that we see very common throughout our lives. First one, centers of systematic opposition. Okay, beautiful words, Emmanuel, but now let us break this down together so we can feel it. So, a systematic opposition, friend. It is when we have a systematic way that we oppose maybe others in our lives. So, for example, there is so much talk now about election, at least in the United States, and we're not going to go there, but just as an example for us, some people think that those who are from a particular political party, because they put themselves, they label people that way, that right there, they sometimes say, oh, because this person votes or thinks that way. And it's a systematic opposition. We don't even know sometimes the person. We don't even try to understand. We don't know their points of view, but we go there and we put a label. We say, that person, no, they, anything that comes out of that group of people or those, because we're labeling them, friends. Or sometimes, as we are entering this month talking about equality, it's when we think that someone is below us or we think we are better than others because of race, because of nationalities, because of status in our society. Oh, someone has a PhD. Oh, wow. Are they different than others? No, they are not. We're all the same, right? It's not because they have a certain position. So we is this way that we have the systematic oppositions. And Emmanuel's explaining if we have and we cultivate those, we're gonna attract those who do the same towards us. So if we put that out, we're gonna attract the same. The same with silent threats, the next item on Emmanuel's list. Silent threats. What is that, friends? Is when we give someone the silent treatment. Simple as that. It doesn't need to be with particular words. It's with our actions, sometimes with our thoughts. So when we don't say anything, but by giving someone the silent treatment, you are in a battle with that person. Maybe not physically, maybe not verbally, but yes, vibrationally, it's a battle. So, as we have those silence threats, as we apply those in our lives, then in that way, are, as Emmanuel said, will then cultivate that class of enemies that we can and should avoid. One more, friends, one more before I pass the word to our dear Carol, because Carol is going to give us the remedy, how we can combating this. These are just a few things for us to reflect, to bring it closer to our heart, to read this list and see how this happens throughout our days. Because we say, oh no, but I'm so tolerant. I'm so tolerant. Let's take a step back tonight. The mentors are providing us with these lessons so that we can take a step back and really see how this applies in our lives. The next one we want to highlight is purpose of retaliations. Retaliation, friends. Unfortunately, something that is so present in our society nowadays, right? That feeling that, oh, someone put a post on Facebook. It's in their page, their opinion, but we feel that we have to go there and we have to give our 50 cents. We have to retaliate. People have their rights, right? We're not saying that we gonna then, bow our heads and agree, right? We can have different opinions, but the problem is when we take that quote unquote violent approach. It might not be physically, which we still see, right? Physical violence, but sometimes, and most of the times nowadays, especially through social media, it's through words that need to go there and retaliate. Or in an argument, sometimes with a family member, they need to say the last word, doesn't matter what, right? Those, friends, are examples for us to bring to our hearts how these feelings, words, actions of intolerance are still so much present in our lives. So, a lot for us to reflect, for us to really put us as we examine ourselves. That's the first step, friends, that we need to do. Examine ourselves, study ourselves. We are our own scientists. We should first see what are the things in this list that we are concluding in our own lives. And now, with that, we're gonna pass the word to our dear Carol, because Carol is gonna bring us the remedy that Emmanuel brought in this beautiful message for us.
Thank you, dear Daisy. Now it is time for us to boost our spiritual health for immortality, of course, because Kardec Radio is here and the Spiritual Society of Virginia is here to nourish our souls, not only for this lifetime, but for immortality. So let us build up our spiritual immunization kit, aid. Emmanuel, in this beautiful message, tells us that intolerance is actually a virus. So now we are going to discuss how to address this particular issue. The first vitamin that we shall take to boost our spiritual immunization is not vitamin D, though vitamin D is highly recommended for the physical body. Of course, we are now talking about a vitamin for the soul, dear friends. And vitamin T in this particular case stands for tolerance. And how might we cultivate the seeds of tolerance inside of ourselves? How might we open that bottle and start taking the vitamin T capsules daily? Number one for us is to not take things personally. For instance, Master Jesus, our guide and model, was attacked, brutally attacked. He was called a revolutionary. He was called a womanizer. He was called all that we can imagine and more. And we never saw Master Jesus protesting against Caesar, protesting against the Pharisees, protesting against the system at the time. What Jesus did was to stand up, and still does, was to stand up for what he believes is in alignment with God's will. So he stood up for love. He stood up for understanding. He stood up for respect. He stood up for equality. Master Jesus broke many protocols, dear friends. He spoke to all people from all walks of life 2,000 years ago. He spoke to women 2,000 years ago very respectfully when that was not expected of him. He spoke to those who were considered to be in the margins of society, that were relegated to the margins of society. He brought them close to his heart, embracing them, teaching us all to respect one another and to understand one another. And he didn't take things personally. He, in fact, said it at the ultimate moment, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." So he gave us the ultimate lesson on not taking things personally. How shall we do this exercise, however, dear friends? You may be wondering. And if you are wondering just that, that is a very valid question that you have in mind. In order for us to not take things personally, we need the syrup of respect and the band-aid of understanding. So we are going to go a little backwards here. We're going to start with the band-aid, because when we have a little cut or a little wound and it's stinging, hurting, a band-aid is the first item that we often look for in our first aid kit. So our spiritual immunization aid kit also contains a band-aid, but a band-aid of understanding. How shall we cultivate understanding? We need to be emotionally intelligent. That is, we need to take time to see the perspective of others, not only our own. Usually, dear friends, we are very good at understanding our very own perspectives, at voicing our very own perspectives, which is very valid. But Jesus and Spiritism, through the light of discernment, are inviting us to understand others as well. So how shall we do that? We shall take a camera, and instead of pointing that camera, angling it just towards ourselves, we shall angle it at the other to understand where that person is coming from. And instead of creating a 3D movie of that person's situation, which is what we are used to seeing in Hollywood, our spiritual camera is going to be even more powerful than Steven Spielberg's camera, if we can believe it. Our camera is going to be a 7D camera. Hollywood hasn't discovered it yet, but Spiritism has. Yes, for sure. Let us break it down together. What is a 7D camera? It is a camera that looks at a particular situation from the angle of the other person, the incarnated being, from the angle of how they were raised, second angle, from the angle of their family background, third angle, from the angle of their past lives, because we are multidimensional, multidimensional and eternal, immortal spirits, millennial spirits, from the angle of their spiritual companions, from the angle of the spirits with whom they still don't attune themselves with, and from the angle of the environment around them. So 7 angles for us to look at. Spiritism adds 7 angles into our vision in order for us to practice understanding. So when we look at a particular incarnate person, Spiritism teaches us to not only look at what we see, but go much beyond it. Remember, this person is multidimensional. Remember, this person is an eternal being. Remember, this person has a network of incarnate and discarnate spirits surrounding them. Remember, this person has past habits from past lives. And of course, remember, this person is a child of God. So when we take all of this into consideration, it becomes a little easier for us to understand that when we feel pain, that pain is often not directed towards us personally. Because when those around us are under the influence of discarnate spirits that may be obsessing them, producing a persistent negative influence towards them, then they may not even see what they are doing. They may not even realize what they are doing. This is ultimately why Jesus was able to forgive us at the cross, because he knew that we couldn't see what we were doing. So if we are able to do this exercise, then we are better able to understand that whatever is done to us is not personal to us. 2, Emmanuel, in the book Thought and Life that Vanessa and Daisy mentioned, recommends that we seek the good in the people with whom we relate. Jesus gives us a beautiful example of that when he sees people who are marginalized in society and brings about the best in them. When he met Mary of Magdala, everyone ostracized her. Even the disciples were astonished that Jesus was talking to her directly. But Jesus not only talked to her, but consoled her and told her that she would be a beautiful disciple herself, that he trusted her. Jesus sought for the good in her as he seeks for the good in each and every one of our hearts. But then you may be wondering, but Carol, how to handle situations when people go overboard with us? Jesus taught us, dear friends, yes, yes, no, no. We can be firm. We can protect ourselves. We can preserve ourselves. We can even ask for changes to take place, but peacefully. like Martin Luther King has done. He was a beautiful example of tolerance for us here in the United States when he stood up peacefully and said, "I have a dream." Why was his dream so powerful to date? Because he exemplified what he believed. So we are being called by the Christ tonight to renew our commitment to peacefully stand up for love, for understanding, for tolerance, and for justice, but justice in a way that is all encompassing. In the Spirit's book, the definition of justice is in respecting other people's rights. So Martin Luther King wasn't against anyone in particular. He was pro-understanding, pro-brotherhood, pro-sisterhood. He wasn't against anyone. He was pro. Jesus wasn't against Caesar. He wasn't even against Pontius Pilate, but he was pro-peace. He was pro-compassion. So let us be pro the very values that we believe. And how can we be pro peacefulness, pro tolerance, pro understanding? By practicing respect. Let people be however they would like to be. Doesn't it feel liberating, dear friends? The fact that we don't have to take responsibility for others. Sometimes our peace is taken away by so little. Sometimes we say, oh, that person at the center, at the spiritual center or at work didn't say hi to me. How dare they not say hi to me? How can that happen? They don't respect me if they knew who I was. How many times do we engage in retaliation, as our dear Daisy told us, reminded us so beautifully tonight, for little things? And Emmanuel is actually reminding us that that is dangerous, that is a virus that can escalate. So if we would like for our society to be different, let us be different ourselves. Oh, but then you may say, Daisy, Carol, Vanessa, Luciana, nobody behaves the way you're saying. You may be right, but Jesus broke protocols. Martin Luther King broke protocols. According to Jesus in the book Good News, the trademarks of the followers of the Good News are hope, courage, and joy. So we shall have the courage to stand up for what we believe with respect and with tolerance and with love. Oh, Carol, so does that mean since I have to practice so much understanding, does that mean that I have to be best friends with the people I'm learning to understand? The gospel according to Spiritism doesn't tell us that. The gospel according to Spiritism in the chapter Love Your Enemies, which Daisy is going to bring about to us in a minute, tells us that it's understandable that even our hearts vibrate differently when we are still cultivating affinity with someone that we don't yet fully comprehend. But all we are asked to do is to tolerate them, to not vibrate protesting feelings of dueling with them, as Daisy brought about. Let us say no to dueling and yes to peace, as Master Jesus has done. So since Master Jesus is our model and guide, let us go to another example inspired by him of how to practice tolerance. Our example comes from the beautiful book also by Emmanuel entitled Paul and Stephen. This is a narrative, dear friends, from the Apostle Paul that was converted in the doors of Damascus. But tonight we don't want to talk about Saint Paul or the Apostle Paul, because though we love him and respect him and owe much to him, we would like to focus on another living example of tolerance. And this living example of tolerance is Stephen. Stephen shows us in that beautiful narrative that when everything seemed to go against him, when his family lost his house, when he saw his father dying in front of him, when his sister was dramatically separated from him because Romans at that time took their belongings and tore them apart because of a crime that his father committed. When he lost everything and still became a slave to the Romans, he praised God in the middle of the slave ship. Can you believe it? He praised God. And I would like to quote an exact sentence that he said himself, that Emmanuel kindly transcribed to us. He actually said, quote, "Those who have nothing to give have their hearts to offer." So even when he was a slave and had no quote unquote perspective, when everything was taken away from him, he said, and I quote from him again, "If God has placed us in this situation, it is because there is something useful to be taken away from it." So what a beautiful lesson of tolerance. So we learn from Stephen as well that in order to be understanding at this level, to respect others at this level, we have to trust God. Stephen trusted God without any buts, without any conditions. Because often we say, yeah, of course I trust God, but I hope that I get this. Of course I trust God, but I hope I don't have to face that. Of course I trust God, but let me not even think of situation X. So usually we trust God, but Stephen, however, was a beautiful and still is a beautiful example of someone who completely surrendered to God. So question for us, where is God in our lives? Have we actually embraced God's love in our hearts? Because if we have, taking the vitamin of tolerance and the syrup of respect and applying the band-aid of understanding shall be easier for us. And of course, our number one model in how to do this is our beloved Master Jesus. Now our dear Daisy is going to quote directly from Jesus, right, Daisy? To inspire us all the more.
That's right, Carol. So to close this beautiful message tonight by Emmanuel, he actually starts the very top of this message titled Spiritual Immunization with this quote from Jesus, which summarizes everything that we have been discussing, summarize everything that Emmanuel brought to us in this message. Because Jesus said, and this is in Matthew chapter 5, verses 44, "But I say to you, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you." Friends, Jesus brought us the remedy that we need, that is summarized here. Love your enemies. As Carol said, Jesus was the perfect example to us, saying that, yes, he himself was persecuted, but he didn't go to the Pharisees at the time and confront them or, battle with them. On the contrary, if you read in the book Good News by Humberto de Campos through Chico Xavier, Jesus, yes, he talked to the Pharisees, but he was very, very loving. He never said, "But I'm the governor of this planet. You don't know anything that you're talking about." He was loving and kind, but that didn't mean that he was gonna go there and mingle with the Pharisees and try, to praise them or try to convince them. We don't see at any point Jesus there. Those who came to him, yes, he provided the clarification, but he wasn't knocking on the Pharisee or Caesar's doors trying to be best friends. But he says, and he taught us, love our enemies. So we know we're not going to be best friends with everyone, but we will share, we will emanate loves towards them. He says, bless those who cursed you. It's that very first class of enemies that Emmanuel brought to us right at the beginning, remember? Those who not gonna agree, they will curse us. They will say their minds, but we will bless them because, as Carol said, we will be understanding. We will put ourselves in the 7D camera and we will bless them. We will do good to those who hate us. Is to go the extra mile, like our dear Chico Xavier, an example for us, where his neighbor was so cruel and, did something very cruel where his dog got sick and ended up passing away. Emmanuel taught Chico to do exactly that, do the good. And he said, Chico, go there and buy the thing that your neighbor wants the most. And he said, but Emmanuel, I barely have enough to sustain myself to eat. And he said, do it. Do it, Chico, and you see. And he saved and saved, and he got us what she wants the most. And when he went to deliver the present, he could feel the vibration. She wasn't expecting it. But we can clearly see how that doing the good, even to those who hate us, then instead of enveloping us with hatred, they will emanate loving and kindness towards us. And if they don't, that's okay. We will not take it personal, right? And pray, friends. Prayer is such an important, and it's, I think, so simple, but sometimes, most of the times, it's then not given the much attention it needs. Prayer so powerful, as Emmanuel brings to us in throughout his books. By praying, we connect and our prayers go high and reach the most elevated minds. And if we don't know anything else on how to proceed about building tolerance, understanding, and respect, we will pray, friends. Prayer is always the remedy that we can use. So, those are Jesus' recommendations to us as we wrap up this beautiful message by Emmanuel. We invite you, friends, if you want to listen more, our dear Vanessa and Saloni did a whole series of programs at Kardec Radio on the Seifa de Luz, the book Harvest of Light, and you can listen to this very lesson by Vanessa. You can listen to the whole message and also in the Spiritist magazine. So now, dear friends, as we are in such a special month, the month of July, and we celebrate tomorrow a very special day for Kardec Radio, we now pass the word to our dear Vanessa because she's going to tell us more about the special day that we will be celebrating tomorrow with so many beautiful activities to nourish our soul.
Thank you so much, Carol and Daisy. Thank you for the opportunity of learning more with Emmanuel in this message that we need to read every day. For sure. We see here our friends. We want to say hi to Gabriel Inácio. Gabriel Inácio, we heard you, but don't worry. Remember, you are protected. You're being enveloped in healing energies. So hello, Wency. Hello, Nora Brazil. Franklin. Hello, Souza. The ones I can see. The ones that I can see. I know there are many more friends connected to us. And for those who have children, the lesson has already passed. But this month, everything that we're doing for the adults, we're extending to the children. We're also marching towards raising children's awareness on the importance of understanding, tolerance, equality, etc. So you're invited to go to the Spiritist Side of Virginia's website, or tomorrow at 10 a.m. There's a replay here at Kardec Radio, okay? And your children in less than 30 minutes can go through a beautiful lesson. This one about tolerance and understanding is super special, and you'll see why. But we would recommend everyone to watch it. Talking about Kardec Radio, July 4th is always Kardec Radio's, of course, anniversary. That's when we began 9 years ago. And every year we have a celebration, but we work. We don't celebrate like, yay! We work harder those days. And you see that we're going to spend pretty much the whole day streaming videos from hosts, not all the hosts we've had this far because it would be impossible, but at least almost like 20 hosts will be streaming their messages, plus special panels regarding the critical times we're living in. This time on earth is about mental health, of all things. It's beyond the coronavirus. It's about how we're staying sane with the adversities of life. So we have 3 people, including me, who will be discussing about it. And we hope that at 12 p.m. you can join us. And then later, Naur Fonseca with guests will be leading a beautiful panel about the Family Spiritist Retreat, which is going to happen the weekend after. And it's going to be a teaser for those who will be joining in. And then at 3 p.m., we have a most important panel. It's about equality today with friends from different areas in the United States will be joining us. And at 6, the Spirit Side of Virginia's team will be leading an outdoor session right in front of our center under the pine tree, because we don't have avocado tree. We are going to use the pine tree. and we're going to do a session with masks, of course, but a session on prayers, etc. And for those who are stopping by, it's going to be the food drive as well. And at the end, of course, Mentor Joseph said, what, 11 p.m., you're not going to do anything? You are. Go back there and talk about the United States of America and its mission with the Christ. Yes, we often talk about Brazil. Oh, Brazil is the heart of the world, the heart of the world. But you know, in the body, the brain comes first. It does. And the brain is the United States of America. And not because we're better, but because we have greater responsibility as well. And we have to unite ourselves with the world to really reach out and coordinate the world better. And Spiritism has a lot to give in that regard. Right? Yes, Gabriel. John the Rose. Thank you, John, for joining us and be with us. So now, as we want to boost in us greater levels of tolerance, it's going to take from now to immortality. So don't worry, you don't need to be tolerant one day. You have the rest of immortality to keep working and working and work. And we repeat the lesson. And we fail, we begin again. We fail, we begin again until we ace at it. And then we're going to be helping others do the same. Right, Luciana?
Oh, sorry. Right. We have immortality, but if we take responsibility now, we can achieve faster.
Yes, we will. So now we want to ask our dear Luciana to lead us into this moment of the passes, the final prayer. But we are going to ask all of us here to pray for others. We've prayed enough for ourselves. Now let us do what Luciana taught us at the beginning from the Spirit's book. No personal interest. Oh, but Vanessa, I'm sick. But you bet there are people who are even sicker than you are. They are. They need more help. Forget about yourself. And let us think of those who don't know Spiritism, are going through these times and don't know if there is hope. And they are sick or they are under abuse, cruelties, without a job, etc., etc. All the many scenarios. Let us pray together. It's going to be service now for all of us. Okay? Luciana is going to lead it for us.
So let us close our eyes. And be united with the good mentors of the Spirit Society of Virginia. As we breathe in and out, we feel their love embrace. And as we receive this loved embrace throughout this treatment, throughout this session, we would like to share those blessings to all of those in greater need than us. This is our charity to the planet. We receive blessings and we share with them. We share those flowers that was given to us. We share to all our brothers and sisters in our neighborhood, in our town, in our state and country. Let us visualize we sharing those blessings with the whole planet. as we receive more energy, as we give out loving energy. All of those brothers and sisters that have been abused by others, that are not able to tolerate the way they are. Let us think about all of those that suffer due to our intolerances. And we pray with Master Jesus, with the mentors of this house, so that they can be healed wherever they might be. We ask, dear God, for protection to all of those that doesn't have a place, a shelter to live. To all of those that doesn't have a plate of food to nourish their body. Those that are not able to buy the medication that they need to survive. To those that do not receive the loving and care of their parents and their family. To those that has no job to go. We pray for those that are sick in the mind, sick in their heart, and in the physical body. The ones sick in the hospitals or at home. We prayed for those brothers and sisters in jail, for those that commit the crimes, and those that are victims of crimes. We also pray for everything in this planet. We are grateful, dear God, for all that you provide to us. And we ask that we can have the eye to see those that need more, so we can wisely help them the way that they need. And with your permission, dear God, dear Master Jesus, mentors of this house, we ask permission to close this meeting of tonight as we prepare for the beautiful day of work of tomorrow, celebrating Kardec Radio and everyone that take the time to work for the greater good, being a host or being helping in their way that they can to make sure that the radio is 24/7 in the air. So with your permission, we close this meeting of tonight, and so be it.
Thank you, friends. Thank you for being here. Thank you. And before we go, we want to say we're not going to wait. I think we need to mute Carol.
Oh, sure.
Agora eu tô ouvindo. What happened?
Okay. Uh-oh. Hold on a second, friends.
Alô?
Oh, what happened there?
Vanessa?
What happened
Ah.
there? Yeah, can you see me? Can
Yeah,
you hear
I
me?
see you and I hear you now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So just want to show to everybody that we just released the latest issue of the Spiritist magazine. Okay. So we recommend that everybody tonight at 11 p.m. we're going to be talking a special program about this issue. It's the 50th issue of the magazine. It's been 12 years, and we want you to pay close attention. There are special things here, especially for this time. Okay, tonight at 11 p.m. here at Kardec Radio. So thank you, friends. A big hug to you. And until 11 and tomorrow. Bye-bye.